mangy dogs, swab the decks and hoist the sails. The guns on board be needing some proper manning. Pieces of 8 and a fine wench on your arm, if your work be not too shoddy. Careful not to flounder too badly, though, or you may have to dance the hempen jig as we see you to Davy Jones. Jeffy, my boy, on with the show.
Welcome, everybody, friends, folks, foes, and fellow pirate mateys, to our latest Friday night feature installment of Pirate Radio Podcasts. It's episode number 199, our annual September 11th, 2001 Memorial and World Roundtable. Glad you could join us. We're going to be, over the next approximate 90 minutes or so, working on producing a lively conversation and analysis regarding the events of September 11th. This is something that, of course, we do feel is important to revisit on a yearly basis. A major, horrific, and catalytic event. The new Pearl Harbor, as it has been referred to by more than a few, it seems. So, WPRPN.com is the website you'll want to drop by, check out. Sign up is free. Simple username, email, and password approach. That's the way to do things. Pirate One Radio at protonmail.com is our email address. If you have any PayPal donations you'd like to send our way, along with suggesting any show or guest ideas you may have in mind. We're pretty much all booked up for the balance of 2020, but one never knows. There could be an opening or two popping up at any point along the way, depending on people's schedules and the cancellations, which do from time to time emerge from out of nowhere. But yeah, check out all the show notes and social media links we have down in the YouTube show description area. And hopefully there'll be enough down there to answer most of your questions. But yeah, on board this week we do have Pirate I was going to call it Pirate Jim. I guess he's Pirate Jim, Reverend Jim, who is kind enough to carry our feed, acting as a syndicator of sorts. Very much appreciated. Angel Espino, as has been the case now the past number of months, doing the same via his psn-radio.com channel, and both Daryl and Katie over at the Global Enlightenment Radio Network. So their support is very much appreciated. On top of that, we have got Pirate Larry from out of Los Angeles, California, and two people that we've had on board here in the past. They haven't been by in a while. It's great they managed to make it. Really happy that they could drop by. Rob Homrich and Stefan Verstappen. People don't know much about either of these folks. You can go into the show's archives, of course, and check out the work that we've done with them in the past. Of course, we'll let them fill you in here in just a second. on their particulars. But yeah, Rob Vitruvian Man Homrich is how we like to refer to him. And Stefan, of course, martial artist, survivalist, and just a real renaissance man in many ways. So, but gentlemen, hey, it's great to have you back. And Stefan, we finally got you here on Skype. So we were getting cock-blocked there in a pretty big way via that other account. So doing it this way with the Pirate One Radio at gmail.com address, which is also, we should remind listeners how they can reach us if they want to call in during the show. We can take brief comments. You can address to any of the speakers, of course, but that's something that's always open and available to the public. Pirate One Radio at gmail.com. Yeah, Stefan, it looks like we finally got things working, so thank you very much, both you and Rob.
Well, no problem, Jaffe. Thanks for having me on.
Rob, we got you there as well, too, still, I guess?
Still here. Looking forward to the show. Thanks for having me.
Okay. So, yeah, 19 years ago to the day. Can you believe it? We've all got our views and perspectives regarding these events, and I guess we're going to do kind of a round the horn sort of approach here as we sail out onto the high digital waters once again this week. But I'm not sure where the best place is to start. It was such a huge event, of course. So many variables, a lot of moving parts. I remember being back in Canada at that time. I was still living back in the West, not having pulled up stakes and sought out, if you will, greener pastures of a sort here in Asia. But yeah, I remember turning on the television that morning, and as memory serves, I seem to have recalled watching that second plane hitting the second trade tower live as it happened. But things they're a little foggy over time as well too. But the one really interesting thing I can maybe share with you guys as the show goes on here is the dream I had just before I woke up. The sort of the image which came to mind, which is really quite profound. I would say it could have been just a coincidence, of course, too. But then again, there might have been something to it. So, Stefan or Rob, I'm not sure. A little rock, scissors, paper here. Either of you have at it. But what are your recollections? Where did you first hear about what was happening on that day, Rob?
Well, it's funny you mentioned dreams because it was very dreamlike for me. I was actually sleeping, but at the time anyway. I slept with my TV on, and I heard basically in my sleep that the first tower had been struck, and I woke up and kind of like, wow, that's pretty crazy. But I didn't think too much of it, and I kind of fell back to sleep. But then I heard the second tower got struck, and then I was wide awake, like, wow, this is pretty serious. I probably ought to check out what's going on. And then, of course, everything unfolded right in front of my eyes. But it's just funny that you mentioned how dreamlike it was, because it was almost like a dream that became a reality for me as it happened in real time. It was very surreal.
Pretty bad dream for a lot of people. Stefan, you were up in Ontario at the time, were you, or were you out on the road?
No, I was living on a horse ranch in Ojai, California. And my wife woke me up, and we, ran to the TV set, and we watched everything go down. And not to tout my own horn, but it took me about 4 hours to figure out this was an inside job. The way those towers came down, I knew right away that that's not possible. You do it like a deductive reasoning. First of all, it's impossible for one of those towers to come down into its own footprint. and it's like 3 times impossible for all 3 towers to come down into their own footprint just because a plane struck them or because of fires. That's not the way things work. When I was a kid, I was a bit of a science geek, and I took some architecture classes, and then we watched a lot of not a lot, but I saw a few of those. There was a TV show, a half-hour show. I forget what it was called, Demolition Man or something, and they showed how they wired up all these buildings, and most of them. Remember when they tore down all of Las Vegas to rebuild it into the Disneyland it is now, and so they showed how they wired up all these buildings and how they coordinated the explosives to take out all the load-bearing pillars simultaneously. It has to be taken out simultaneously, or otherwise the building will fall over and crush a bunch of nearby buildings. So to take it down into its own footprint, and they showed this, how they wired it and how long it took them, and then they showed the actual footage of these buildings being demolished. Well, it looked exactly like Building 1, 2, and 7. And so I knew right then that this was not caused by an airplane. So then I thought, well, if it's terrorists, how the hell are you going to get terrorists in to take down every load-bearing pillar on a 100-story building?
If I can interject, see, that was my first thought, is even before I even thought about how the buildings came down and how it was so controlled and it looked controlled. My first thought, which led me to believe it was an inside job or there was more going on, was simply the fact that these airplanes managed to pull this off.
Yeah.
And that's right there. I mean, because we've got NORAD, they scramble jets hundreds all the time. It's routine. And yet they managed to do this for 2 hours and do their maneuvers, and it was clear there was something going on, and they didn't get intercepted. That's what kind of threw it for me. So,
yeah. Well, for me, it was the way the buildings collapsed, and afterwards I heard about. Well, you're right. I didn't think about the them flying around for 2 hours without radio contact. Come on.
And you're right too. I just didn't think about that part. I mean, it's just a matter of everybody. You got to take your own perspective. But
yeah, you got to key off on what the biggest glaring error or paradox that you can key in on. That's what clues you off. So for me, it was the way they came down. I knew right away it would be impossible for terrorists. It must have taken them, I bet you, judging by how long it took those guys in that TV show to wire a 20-story building, it must have taken them a year. They probably had to bring in literally tons of explosives and hundreds of miles of detonation cord. This was set up.
Not only that, but this is after the bombing, after they bombed the garage, like 10, 15 years before that. So, I mean, you've got security to deal with. Is bad enough, but security after something like that, and to work all of that under the nose of security. There's no way it could be done without a little inside help. That's right. There's no way.
Yeah, so the deductive reasoning for me went, okay, can't be terrorists. Somebody had to wire it. No way they could wire it without having an inside man that controlled everything. And then lo and behold, Lucky Larry.
Lucky Larry. Imagine that.
Lucky Larry.
Who had the foresight to take out insurance policies, as we all know.
Yes. Yep. Double indemnity, and just happened to miss going to lunch that day.
How convenient.
How convenient. And so it had to be Larry. Of course, you need somebody that runs everything and would tell the security. Well, probably my guess would be the security would have been replaced by Israelis already a year before this, right? Sure. So you wouldn't have to have like local security guards to worry about. So it was Lucky Larry and the Israelis. That was it. It took me about a day to figure that out.
Yeah. All roads lead to Rome, right?
Yeah.
They really do. Obviously, though, you can't deny that there was certainly some U.S. involvement.
They were all in on it. Absolutely. They were all thick in on it. Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld and Wolf and, They were all in on it, absolutely.
Sure.
And
Sure. I mean,
Chernoff, Jesus Christ, what an ugly
let's not
cast.
forget the painting in Epstein's palace there of George Bush with the Jenga towers and the paper airplanes. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously he was a guy who knew a lot about everybody because that was his job. And lo and behold, he's got ties to Israeli as well. So, I mean, it's funny how it all seems to interconnect.
Well, and let's not forget the dancing Israeli art students. That's another piece
Sure.
of the puzzle, which is, it's hard to ignore. Of course, it's like right there in front of you, and then we're expected. Oh, you can't look at that because if you do, you're an anti-Semite. Which that whole
Right.
the word is utterly ridiculous. If you look at that term, but they try to attack you as if it has any meaning. It has no meaning whatsoever. It's come up with a better term, folks. But the PNAC documents, those were really central, quite instrumental, weren't they? The project for New American Century, and they prophesize, and really, it was like an early Christmas present for those people. The new Pearl Harbor, they needed that catalytic event in the classic Hegelian dialectical fashion, action, reaction.
Solution.
Yeah. So, and without that, I mean, just ask yourself, where would we be today if there had not have been these terror attacks on that day? How different would the world look? These events are necessary, it seems, to justify military invasions and the crusades, as Bush referred to it once back in the day, and then his advisors told him maybe that wasn't the best choice of words at the time. The crusade, the latest.
But let's also not forget the underlying objective, which is to make every American into a terrorist as well, and
There
give
you
us
go.
an excuse
That's
to
right.
spy on everybody and just take away rights.
That's right. Absolutely.
And imagine how much easier it would be to get through an airport. Never mind COVID, we haven't even gotten to that because that's the whole new greatest hoax. But before that, there was a hoax called 9/11, which was the greatest, and that's what we're talking about. So just imagine, though, I mean, look at these past two hoaxes I just mentioned and what they do to the airport. I mean, that alone, it always comes down to control. Always comes down to controlling the people in every aspect.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's long been that way since the ancient times of Babylon and beyond. Something Stefan knows a great deal about. He's written about extensively with the books that he's produced and shared with us in the past on the various live streams we put together. But before we get back to either of you gentlemen, let's allow a chance for maybe Pirate Larry. You can take the first crack at things here, and then Reverend Jim, their impressions of that day and where they first heard about what was happening. Pirate Larry, hope we still got you there via Los Angeles, California.
So where did it all begin? It began on September 10th when John Ashcroft said the Pentagon was missing $2+ trillion.
Donald Rumsfeld.
Donald Rumsfeld, yeah.
Right.
So that's where it began. I was, in my home in California, and I got a call from my son in New York. He said, "Don't worry, Dad, I'm alive." And I said, "What? What's going on?" And he said, "Turn on the TV," which I did. And, I saw I think I saw the second plane. But I can't tell because they were doing reruns that day of, the planes hitting the towers every 2 minutes. So I don't know whether I saw it live or whether I was just seeing one of the reruns. But that was my connection. I had a son who lived down in that area of New York.
September 10th, Larry, that it really is a critical date for so many different reasons. In fact, it was on that day that Osama bin Laden's nemesis, it's hard to pronounce this guy's name even if I was able to find it. He was the head of the Afghan Northern Alliance. He was assassinated by I think it was two individuals. They were posing as journalists, and they were suicide bombers, is how the official story goes. And he lost his life. And with that occurring, apparently Vladimir Putin picked up the phone and called George Bush, saying to him that something big was in the works, clearly. And whether Bush knew anything more or not at that particular moment, he, I guess, really wasn't saying too much. So I just
the
think
Russians tried to warn us. They tried to warn us of the Boston bomber too.
there was a lot of warnings. There was a lot of warnings from the intelligence agencies from all over the world.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's so much going on as far as the Pakistan intelligence and Muhammad Atta with money changing hands, and this so-called flying circus down in Venice, Florida, I think is the name of the community they have there. So that's where. And so many of the hijackers were trained by Stefan. You know about this, don't you? Where they they were trained by American Air Force, were they not?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I forget now. I spent like 15 years poring over all the evidence. Well, let's say 10 years. After that, it just got repetitive. And what more do you need to know? There are, 1,000 proofs that this was, an inside American-Israeli, basically a banker operation. Let's, call it who's running everything. It's the central bankers. They control the American government. Well, they control every government in the world. Look at what's going on with this COVID nonsense. That everybody that's shut down their country, that means that country is owned by the bankers, because all of this is just a big stage play, and that they can get the whole world to dance to their tune is a really bad sign. But this all started, 9/11 was just another little roll of the dice for them. It was like a small operation, to be honest with you. And it's just, and I spent a lot of time, and I'm even good friends with Barry Zwicker, who wrote the book, Towers of Deception, way back in, I think it was 2003 it came out. I met him in California at a speaking engagement, and he laid it all out already way back then, all the discrepancies, all the reasons to indicate that this was a joint Israeli-American big banker operation.
Well, let's not forget also that, it's the perfect target for the bankers. It's the world financial headquarters. And, you mentioned the millions that are missing from the Pentagon fund and everything the day before. It's the perfect storm, and all of the elements are there. One thing I wanted to touch upon is Hollywood, because Hollywood always seems to be one step ahead of everybody on this thing, and we call it predictive programming, where they kind of just put the idea out there. And it's really, the whole plot of 9/11, when you think about it, it's perfectly laid out in the movie Die Hard with a Vengeance. It's right there. There's an attack on Wall Street, and it's the perfect front to smuggle the gold. So you just follow the money, and it's all right there.
The Lone Gunman episode as well, too. Let's not forget predictive programming, is exactly what you're talking about here, of course, Rob. So, and then all the September 11th imagery in the Matrix, and I think even the Big Lebowski if I'm not mistaken. So it's
Oh,
interesting.
and then we've
Uh-huh.
all seen the Simpsons meme as well. Don't forget the Simpsons meme.
What was going on with the Simpsons? It was the trade towers, and what exactly?
Yeah, there's an episode where they go to New York. They go to the towers, but there's a meme. There's like a memorialized meme of basically it's Bart showing the two towers, which makes up the 11, and you can go there for like $9 or something. So it's 9/11 right there laid out in the meme. And the Simpsons are, and this, of course, this is years before it happened as well. So
Well, and the Pentagon itself. When was it? When was the cornerstone laid? When did construction first begin?
oh, that's a good point. That was 9/11 as well. And then don't forget the Illuminati playing cards, which picture both the Pentagon and the towers being struck by terrorists.
The Steve Jackson playing card game is what you're referring to, I guess. Is that right?
Yes, the Illuminati card. Yep. And so, I mean, it seems like a lot of people were, I mean, everything was leading up to it. It was like one of those things that was almost inevitable. It was like, I feel like they implant this into our subconscious just to create it, just to bring it to fruition. I mean, you know, just to get whether subliminally or not, just to get people focused on this, and it helps to bring it into fruition. I mean, there's more going on to that than most people realize, and just the power of thought.
Absolutely. And what does the word government mean? Actually, if you break it down etymologically, is simply that: mind control, gubermente, to control the mind, from the Latin.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hey,
Regulate the mentality.
one more time.
To regulate the mentality, exactly. Mind
Mhm.
control, government.
Yeah, and that's why, from my perspective, and I think a lot of the pirates here on board as well too, generally, they're more about an autonomous, self-naming type approach, other than when we find ourselves in the heat of battle, and we're expected all essentially to fall into line. Or get off the ship, I guess, is what it comes down to, right? Either find your way onto land, or get on another ship, or, you know, decisions. So we have not yet heard from Reverend Jim. What are your recollections of that morning? When did you first hear about what was taking place? Just, if you could, fill us in a little more as to your particular set of circumstances back there in the day, September 11th, 2001.
Well, earlier in the year 2001, I had studied and took the test to become a realtor, to be a real estate agent. And I studied and passed both the state test and then the national exam to be a realtor, or the neat little R on your lapel. And worked my butt off trying to make either get a sale, get someone to buy a house, or get a listing, find someone who wants to sell their house. And I had a couple on the hook. Well, not on the hook. They were on the hook. All I had to do was get them to just finalize the paper. They were going to sell their house and move. And 9/11, the morning of, that was going to be the day I was going to get my first listing. I was going to all right, this is going to pay off. Ran out to my car, started the car up, and I heard something about a building. And I ran back in the house, told people, I was like, hey man, turn on the TV, there's something going on. Went back out to my car. By the time I got to the office, both towers were down here, because I'm over here on the east or the west coast, so it's 3-hour difference. And the whole office, everyone's just like in shock. And basically, just like the airplanes that they stopped flying for 3 days, everything stopped. Nobody was going to buy a house, and nobody was going to sell a house. Everything just froze. And well, that's when I had to end up going back to screen printing, because I needed a job that was going to actually pay me some money for the hours you put into it, and that ain't realty if you are not making sales. And there were no sales to be made after that. So yeah, it basically 9/11 shattered my world, and I had nothing to do with New York whatsoever. And then I didn't believe, I was unbelieving that no way that the plane, those buildings were made to withstand being hit by an airplane. I've watched the documentaries of them building it even before 9/11. So when they're saying, oh, fires brought it down, and then building 7, and it's like, no way, that was wired. And when you ask, how did they do that? Remember the Israeli art students that rented a couple of floors for a while, took out one of the windows, at least one of the windows, and had pictures of themselves out on this little platform they made I can't remember, on those, like the 94th floor or somewhere up in there. But in the series of photos of these art students up there, there's hundreds of boxes stacked up inside the office space they're in. And those boxes, according to the coding on it, contain wire couplers, basically wire holders, fuse holders for basically like demolition. So there's evidence that the pre-wiring was being done then, and then after Silverstein bought the 9/11, 6 weeks was it before, there was all sorts of weird things going on. There was constructions going on certain floors. They asked companies that had space if they would move to different floors, and then construction went on in the floors that they had occupied. And other companies broke leases. They had leases that were supposed to go for a few more years or 10 years, and they broke their lease and moved out right before 9/11. So yeah, I don't remember exactly when I realized it was all BS, but it wasn't too long after.
Well,
if I can jump in.
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
If I can jump in first, I think the big thing people need to realize is that, you've got this 9/11 commission report, just full of crap. It's clear they put no effort into actually getting to the root of the problem. And since then, we've had all these architects, structural engineers, all these people coming forth saying there's no validity to the official narrative. Yet we haven't revisited it. We haven't reopened the case. We haven't done any further investigation. We just kind of leave things as they are. 20 years have passed, and we're still at that point where we're just kind of still trying to sweep it under the rug and forget about it. You got to ask yourself why. I mean, and the answer is obvious, and it should be obvious to everybody on this planet. It just boggles the mind that we just sit back and accept it for the official story, and we allow it to just kind of be swept under the rug. But yet here we are 20 years later, and now we're moving on to the next big hoax. So it just boggles my mind.
That is indeed, I fully concur with what you've just laid out there, and that it's disappointing, but it's also a reflection of the state of humanity, the level of consciousness that is out there. How really, even like places here, countries, nations such as South Korea, it's really sad the way people are with the masks is a real reflection of their inability to question.
At the same time, though, I do believe that it did somewhat, in a way, backfire on the elites, the establishment, whatever you want to call them, the powers that be, it did backfire, because that does seem to be a turning point where people did start waking up. So on the maybe there is a silver lining
That's a
on the
good
cloud.
point. Yeah, that's a really good point. In fact, a lot of people, including even Joe Rogan, have discussed how he's noticed, his impression is there, and this is right around the time of Corona kicking off, interestingly enough, at the height of all this talk and investigation, finally, into the Epstein underage sex trafficking and prostitution rings that have existed at the highest levels of society for God only knows how long. But it's, as they say in politics, timing is everything. So with this COVID thing, I think it was one of the cards, one of the options that the powers that be had in their arsenal. I know Stefan has got a few thoughts regarding this whole matter. Unusually quiet. Maybe he's just waiting his turn, of course. But what do you think, Stefan? There's so much to go into, of course, regarding just September 11th itself. But I mean, if you want to, whatever you want to address, frankly. But the COVID connection and the timing to things. Once again, as with the timing of September 11th, even from an occult standpoint, that number 11, I guess, is the perfect number for chaos and discord. Stefan?
Yeah, no, I'm just, I'm sitting back, letting everybody have a chance to speak. I don't want to dominate the conversation, so I'm not being quiet on purpose. Like because I'm pissed off or something.
Oh no, because I know that you've got you've got a lot to offer. So go ahead, the floor is yours.
Yeah, just everybody have a fair turn. And anyways, well, listen. First of all, the thing is, I'm very jaded now. I've been doing this now for like 30, 40 years, ever since I figured out JFK wasn't shot by Lee Harvey Oswald. I'll tell you what got me onto this. This goes way back. I'm 16 years old. I'm trying to score pot, and one place where you could go to score pot was University of Toronto. There are dormitories, and so that's where we went. And because the college students were selling pot, and we were just still in like high school. And when I was there, one of the dope dealers told me a story. He said, "Do you know that the CIA is carrying out mind control experiments on Canadian housewives in Montreal and putting them into a coma and feeding them acid for a month at a time?" Well, I'd never heard anything like this in my life. What an outrageous conspiracy theory. It's so ridiculous. What? CIA in Canada? Oh, the guy must have been smoking too much of his own product. Well, son of a bitch, I think it was 10 years later, mainstream media here in Canada, a program that was sort of like 60 Minutes here they called it W5, they came out with an expose that showed what, son of a gun, the CIA was funding these psychiatric doctors at what was it, Mick something University in Quebec, and that's what they were doing. They took housewives that came into the hospital saying, "Oh, I'm feeling a little bit depressed," and then they strapped them down, gave them electromagnetic the electroshock therapy, and they pumped them full of acid, and then they did recording loops, on tape recorders that would, program in a certain. I mean, everything this guy told me 10 years earlier was true, and worse and worse. So there's no such thing as a conspiracy theory. There are conspiracies, and a lot of them are true. So that made me look in a jaundiced way at almost everything that's happened in the government since then. So what I have now is I have a big picture. I pull way back. I'm no longer worried about the details of, were the planes on time and what was the numerology involved. The numerology means nothing. All of that stuff is red herrings. We're all discussing the minor details. It's like arguing how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. I mean, I did it myself. I'm not, condemning anybody that does it. I went through it. But now what I'm looking at is the big picture. The big picture is our mass enslavement. And all of this stuff, starting with the foundation of the central bank, the Federal Reserve Bank, back in 1911, starting there, this has been a 100-year plan to enslave the world. And what we're seeing now with this COVID, 9/11 was part of it, another way to chip off more of your rights, another way to start to indoctrinate you into fear, and another way to get you to, rely on the government to protect you. Anyways, now we're here with this COVID, and it's their end game. If they get away with this crap, we won't come out the other end free people anymore. And that's the big picture.
I totally agree with what you're saying. I think that's exactly what I'm leading to as well in all my research and everything I put out there. It really comes down to enslavement. It's all about control. It always leads back to control. Yeah. And I think you're exactly right. We're at the end game. I mean, the jig is up. They know the jig's up. They have to play their final card. This is it. It's now. This is everything. This is the culmination of everything for the last 100 years. I totally agree. And it all goes back right to where you said it all starts. All roads lead back to Rome, back to the bankers.
Yep. And that's also when they brought in income tax. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was supposed to be 3%. Oh, we're not going to raise it more than 3%. And then we have the same thing. Oh, we're only going to shut it down for 2 weeks.
It's like the movie The Money Pit. How long is all this going to take? 2 weeks. I mean, yeah. I really feel like that's the punchline of the whole joke.
That is the punchline of the whole joke. And that's the big picture. I mean, Jesus, Murphy, we have been so screwed, all of us. Everybody, for the last 100 years, our parents were screwed. Our grandparents were screwed. It's a really big joke.
Even more screwed with every generation, too. So if we're screwed, imagine how our kids are going to be screwed. I don't have kids, but I fear for the people who do. I feel for them because this is the world you're leaving your kids. And that's why I don't have kids.
Yeah, that's one of the decisions I made as well, too, back in the day, more or less, was that looking at the huge responsibility and cost, of course, that it would require. So thankfully I hooked up with a woman who was, she was more or less on the same page as myself. It's a very Buddhistic, actually, way of looking at the world, essentially, that we do what we can to cultivate, compassion, really, and wisdom, but also helping others. And when we leave this world, after having done our best, hopefully, as best as we could manage, that's it. We say goodbye, although there likely be reincarnated, whether we like it or not. We'll be back again on some planet in some form. So something of a non sequitur, going deep with the philosophy there and the metaphysics, I suppose. But I was going to say that with respect, 2 weeks, the old slippery slope kind of business. It's always that way, isn't it? Absolutely. Yeah, just a couple weeks, and you could see it. You could see the way that they were going to do it, and this is going to, ultimately lead up. They're pushing for the mandatory vaccines too. So, with some people, they mock that idea, but we'll see. Look at the insanity in Australia right now. So, and this is even Google for people who question the official narrative. You end up finding yourself demonetized. Apparently, that's the deal, not just for questioning.
There's the bigger picture too, which is really, and of course you mentioned the vaccinations, but I think the even bigger picture is the cashless society, and of course, right back to the bankers we go again. outcast of society.
Well,
I don't think most people realize the impact that will have on this world. You can't even give your grandkids $5 for their birthday without the government getting involved.
and the whole Bitcoin business, apparently it's been people that have researched it, looked into it. It apparently is one huge NSA operation. That's who was behind the launching of Bitcoin for all you Bitcoin aficionados. So yeah, and it's all Pirate Larry knows this all too well. Maybe Larry, you want to jump in here because I know you often do address this theme, how it's not just the one issue; it's rather the larger picture. And Stefan, I think, might have just hit on this as well too, just a couple moments ago. The same sort of concept, basically. If you follow what I'm getting at, Larry, that so often they try to with the media largely, and the way they frame the issues, and endlessly gaslighting us, of course, too. Let's not forget both our governments and the media, along with every other, pretty much.
Right.
Go ahead.
If you don't wear a mask, it means you're a psychotic. I just had to throw that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in Australia, I was watching some video footage, and it is utterly insane, and these cops are following these ridiculous orders. I can't believe it. I just cannot believe it. Of course, they'd probably lose their jobs if they didn't, but
they're arresting people for posting on Facebook.
Well, starting with that pregnant woman, I guess. So, yeah, sure, that's right. And would we? I guess they could have played this at an earlier time, even before 9/11, and had the same effect. Or do you think maybe not, because we've been conditioned to this point over 20 years? They've worked with the conditioning of people's consciousness right back to using these various Tavistock Institute MK Ultra techniques, as to what Stefan hit on there with the housewives being dosed with the acid. And I'm trying to think of that. Is it McMaster? I think McMaster University.
Oh yeah.
Right? So
and it was the Scottish guy. I forget what is it.
Ewan Campbell.
Ewan Campbell. That's right.
Yeah, there you go.
They actually did that. They kidnapped innocent housewives and just scrambled their brains.
Do you know who? Do you know who else? Oh yeah. Do you know who else was involved in that? Apparently, I've seen pictures. I've got they're stashed here somewhere. There's just one picture actually, but another high level type, very well known. He's deceased now, but a great musician and artist, Leonard Cohen, of all people, back in the day. I don't know if anyone else has seen the pictures of him strapped up to all of those instruments and so forth. But he was being treated, I guess, for depression or some sort of neurosis, as they like to call it, of some kind. Yeah. And that's the deal there. So
it was doing electroshock therapy in those days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and lobotomies were still the thing as well too. They're kind of maybe taking a second look at that, but some pretty awful.
Yeah, I think
barbaric.
they still do lobotomies. I think they still do.
Oh dear God. Well, some, yeah. So all I can say within the context of all this is that, well, look, I pretty much knew on that day that we were entering into World War III. Alex Jones still, for whatever reason, hasn't come to be able to get his head wrapped around this whole idea. Constantly, I don't know if you hear him too much as of late, but wondering when World War III is going to come about. Kaiser Schuff, someone who might be listening right now, someone that we had in the wings here potentially in case there was a cancellation, but he has shared with us how, very insightful, that World War III was in fact the Cold War. That's how he looks at things, basically. So World War IV kicking off September 11th, 2001, if you will, whatever. It's all just a big numbers game. So, and why go with the official version of events anyways, since most of the time it's all just a lot of muff fake or nonsense,
right.
Unhealthy programming
World War
to begin
III
with. Mm-hmm.
World War III is expected to be a nuclear exchange, but it really, in reality, Kaiser's right. It's a covert operation, and he would know. So, I
Well,
mean, it has been a covert operation. Whether you want to say it started at the Cold War, 9/11, it's all the same. It's all the same goal. It's all the same end goal.
well,
The end goal is really
yeah.
World War III.
Well, and look at the Greater Israel Project as well too. That's within the whole. That's quite central to, I believe, the PNAC documents, if I'm not mistaken. Most of those people who were central, basically they were the brains and the intellect, the ones who were shaping and coming up with these plans regarding the Project for a New American Century. Very much pro-Israel Zionists. A lot of them just happen to be Jewish. Not all, of course, but you could look at that as just a coincidence. Not all Jews are political Zionists or supporters of Israel, but apparently that's what I mean. Look at Yemen, for example, and the rise of ISIS, to which I guess Donald Trump has been working on, diffusing or disempowering, I suppose would be another way of putting it. But that was with respect to what Obama was. I'm not sure if he entirely was responsible for ISIS, his administration necessarily, but there's so much that stemmed from the catalytic event of 9/11, that there was just huge opportunity, crisis and opportunity, as the Chinese have long understood, and that was seized upon by the powers that be on every level, it seems, including, let's look at the the body scanners in the airports. Who was behind that? Michael Chertoff. If people recall, who was Michael Chertoff? For those who have forgotten, he was at that time, under the Bush administration, the chief of Homeland Security, the chief czar. It's interesting how they came up with this czar business around that whole time as well too. So and it's interesting if you look at Chertoff, put a picture of him and Vladimir Lenin side by side. The resemblance is quite striking. So
or any painting of Satan.
Okay, all right. So
the guy looks like he came out of Central Casting. Oh, we're shooting a horror movie. We want somebody that looks like a demon. Oh, we got somebody for you there, Michael Chertoff. You don't even have to put him on makeup. The guy just looks evil,
creepy looking guy.
But there's a plan to rule the world. So, okay, who's behind the plan? Well, we have certain names that keep coming up. Stein, Berg, Mann, over and over again. And this is what I noticed shortly after 9/11. And what I did is I thought, son of a bitch. Now, I used to teach for an Israeli commando. I taught Krav Maga for 6 years at full time. I had this huge club, and like 90% of our students were Israelis, and the other 10% were just North American Jews. So I know them very well, and met all the rabbis. I went to the bar mitzvahs, and went to Passover dinner and stuff like that. I mean, I know them very well. So when 9/11 happened, I went, wait a minute, there is a sinister side here. And I've traced them back, 4,000 years. They do this to every civilization. It's the same game plan. The central bank, the usury, getting the entire population into debt, bribing off the kings and the aristocrats. I mean, you see, if you're a psychopath, you know that the rulers of every country will be a psychopath. That's just the way the world is. Psychopaths always find their way to the top. So now it's so easy. You go to the king of the country. You want some favor. Oh, let me open up a central bank for you. And the king will say, no. Well, maybe you like some young boys. We have some young boys for you. Or if the king refuses that, then, well, maybe you like little girls. We got some little girls for you. And if the king refuses that, well, We can lend you a lot of money. We got lots of money. We can lend you money. You can build new palaces and everything like that. Look, they hit on something with these people, okay? And they make this connection. And with psychopaths, little boys, little girls, and money, guaranteed you've bought them, okay? And that's how they get in. And they've gotten in every country in the world for the last 4,000 years. They're behind the destruction of Egypt, the second intermediary period. They're behind the destruction of the Persian Empire and the Roman Empire and the Greeks and the Babylonians. Always the same story. Move in there, cause a lot of disruption, get everybody fighting against each other, turn people against each other. And nothing could be easier in the world. I go, Jaffe, hey, Rob said that you're a real asshole. And then I go up to Rob and I say, Jaffe told me he really doesn't like you. I do that 10 times. You two will be at each other's throats, right? It's so easy. It's a cheap trick, but it works, and they do it every time. So now we got, feminists against their husbands and lesbians against straight and black against white. Who do you think's behind it? It's always the same thing. Get everybody fighting against each other. And then, so all these world wars, and anyways, this is going to reflect on a world war. All these world wars are just big money-making operations because we know the same central bankers backed both sides of every damn war. They backed the Nazis, they backed the Germans, they backed the British. For them, it's just a big money-making operation. And, of course, the side benefit is they can enjoy watching the untold suffering of millions of people because they like that. So the Cold War, the Second World War, the war that's coming, it's just one big money-making operation for these people. They've got to get us fighting each other. And, that's where we have to stop it, And like Mark Passio, Mark Passio always says about the order takers, we have to stop being order takers. You can't, these cops, the military, if it wasn't for them, these people would have no power. It's because they buy people that take orders. That's why they get away with it. Sorry.
And that, I think, and you're good. And that, I think, is the thing that makes this Epstein thing so huge, is because that really exposes everything you're talking about, how they find the weakness in these leaders, whether it be a little boy or a little girl. And that's why there's all this pedophilia revolving around this thing, because you think about it, that's the perfect dirt to have on any politician.
Yeah.
What if the world found out about the pictures we took of the situation we set you up in,
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they get their control. And I mean, that's a classic old school tactic.
Very old school.
J. Edgar Hoover was a big one, very fond of that one. And you're hitting the nail right on the head there. And again, it always comes down to control. And of course, like you said, these powers of position, I think only a psychopath would want that kind of a position.
Yes.
Of course, it's naturally going to draw these kind of people. And I think that's the thing humanity really needs to wake up to, is we create these positions of power, which is just asking for trouble. Just having these positions of power creates the troubles of the world that we're experiencing. And the real key to overcoming it all is to just come to the realization that that's really the root of the problem. Is we're creating these positions of power, which are they're inevitably, every single one that we can possibly conceive of creating will inevitably, guaranteed 100%, become corrupted. Yeah. Because that's all you have to realize, whether you want to believe in God or the devil, good and evil are very real, and you can't deny that. There are evil people. And those are the people that want to control. And so naturally, they're the ones that are going to be drawn to these jobs. And so it should be no surprise to anybody when we have scandal after scandal after scandal of all these leaders. It shouldn't come as any surprise. And look, when's the last time we had a president that wasn't involved in a scandal? When are we going to learn?
Jefferson?
We're going way back, but I mean, you might be right. You might totally be right.
Well, scandals go with, hand in glove with politics, though. It's almost unavoidable. As people talk about conspiracies. Once again, the realm of politics, it doesn't get any more conspiratorial than that, I don't think. And that goes way back to the time of all through history, of course.
And that's my whole point is
Mhm.
we're creating wars, and they're just vacuums for scandal. They attract the evil that we have to contend with.
Right.
That's
Well,
exactly the point.
sure. And then what we have is establishment families, these old bloodlines, old money, back
Sure.
in Europe, of course, but and Middle East, Asia, bloodlines.
And that's another thing
Oh.
another thing all the presidents have in common is they all trace back to that one
Charlemagne.
Yep.
Yeah. Bloodlines of the Illuminati was what I was going to say there. So the Onassis bloodline, supposedly. Out of Asia, it's the Lees, or in Korea they call them E's, I guess, here. And who else do we have? I mean, you look at, even though like Rockefellers and Soros and even J.P. Morgan, the name has not come up yet, but all three of those folks, those names which most of us know all too well, Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, and Soros, some of them dead, some of them not, some of them still breeding, which is all part of what allows them to sustain and to perpetuate these institutions of iniquity that they serve largely as fronts, bagmen, from what I understand, for the Rothschild criminal empire.
absolutely.
So. Mm-hmm.
Some of them are even dead while walking.
Right.
Like
Well,
so-
yeah, there you go. Yeah, spiritually correct. Yes. Which I think, to an extent we all are, if you want to be honest, Rob, and that from the Gnostic standpoint, which I think we're presumably most of us here listening and present in the live chat familiar with that, we know it's all about a process of awakening, from being asleep to actually waking up and seeing things for what they truly are, which was one of the points I was just going to make earlier. You were framing things in a context or in a manner of the world being good and evil versus what, from, once again, the Eastern or Dharmic standpoint is more question, apparently, of mental confusion versus clarity. So clarity is essentially what we strive to achieve, and we want to kind of avoid confusion, mental confusion, and delusions, basically, within our minds and our thinking, of course. So, but let me just remind listeners that this is episode number 199 of Pirate Radio Podcast. We've got show number 200 coming up here in just a week, and I've got to check the calendar actually to see what's going on, but this is going to be, well, it's ironically enough, Talk Like a Pirate Day. That's what we're looking at there. So how about that? That should be a lot of fun. Yar me hearties. Yeah. String 'em up by the yard arm. That's flail 'em with the cat of 9 tails. So, or maybe send a little grape shot their direction. See what sort of reaction we can get from all of that. Having not.
Before I forget,
Yeah.
I want to address something Rob said.
Mm-hmm. Go
Because
ahead.
he's absolutely
Go ahead.
right about that. And that is the true meaning, or at least this is the way I think of it, of the pyramid. The true meaning of the pyramid, because we know it's a big deal with these people. They're all making the pyramid symbol, this, that, and the other. But, and this also explains why I am an anarchist in the classic sense of the word. And that is, the pyramid is a corporate flow chart. The guy at the top tells the other 2 guys below him what to do, and they tell the other 4 guys below them what to do, and so on and so on and so on, all the way down the pyramid. And you're guaranteed to always have a psychopath at the top of that pyramid. So then the whole pyramid becomes psychopathic and can produce nothing of any good. And it's a flow chart. It's a corporate flow chart. And if we didn't create institutions based on the pyramid system, then no one person can make it to the top. So for me, it almost sounds like communism, but it's communitarianism. And that is, organizations should be run by a percentage of the people that it employs. So it's not one guy gives all the orders. And I think that's what the founding fathers tried to do there in the United States. That's why they had all the checks and balances. Not one guy can have all total power over everybody and everything. He has to, diffuse that power among other people. And for a government, that's kind of the best that they could come up with. And it was, pretty good. I couldn't think of something better than that, because human beings are horrible, corrupt people, and they'll screw everything up no matter how nicely you try to set it up for them.
I can think of one better. No rulers. You're an anarchist. You said it yourself. That's the real answer. The real answer is no rulers. It's not to say no rules. That's not to say no rules. Nope. I believe we should have one rule, and that's simply do no harm. And as long as we can all agree to that without the rulers, I think we'll be a much better society.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that's the problem. It's the pyramid structure. It's this hierarchy, and they love it. So that's why they establish a hierarchy. Everything. The university system is a hierarchy. The medical system, it's a hierarchy. And that is the problem, because when you create those structures, you invite the psychopaths in to rule them and to rule you, and no good can ever come from that situation.
Look at the Freemasons, the way they have their various degrees, levels of initiation. It's all laid out there. There's a famous, actually, either it's a picture or a meme that maps it all out in the step-by-step fashion as to what you're getting at. Both of you, really. I think most of us are able to essentially grasp and understand. So I'll see if I can track that down, though. But one thing about the Freemasons, too, is I just don't understand why. I think they're being so very disingenuous, frankly, when they talk about how Freemasonry is not a religion. I mean, how could it not be a religion? Come on.
I don't think they're disingenuous. I think they're misled. At least unless you get to the top of that pyramid, which is funny. We're talking about pyramids, and we go to Freemasons. What's their favorite symbol besides the square and compass? It's the pyramid. And so I really feel like unless you're really at the top of that pyramid, you don't know. So how can you be disingenuous if you really believe the bullshit you're shoveling?
Yeah.
So it's really, I think it's like that by design, obviously, for the end goal, which is, but disingenuous, to say the least. It absolutely is. It's structured that way intentionally, kind of like our government is so compartmentalized so that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, because if all the parts knew what they were doing, they wouldn't do their part. That's right. Freemasonry in a nutshell. And that's why so many lower level Masons will defend the craft to the death almost, or, just because they just don't know what they're really involved in.
What the point, though, I'm not sure if you understood what I was getting at or heard me clearly. What I'm saying, though, just to be clear, is how most Masons will deny, and they'll, who knows what sort of justification or reasons, form of logic they'll try to present, but that what they practice, the craft, as it is known, is not a religion. My question to them and everyone listening, of course, is how could it not be a religion? They've got all of these rites and rituals with respect to the various degrees of initiation. That's one. They meet in a temple is where they meet, actually, lodges, but they're actually called temples, from what I understand. They have grand worshipful masters. What are they worshiping? So somebody who has more authority, I suppose. Go ahead.
I think I got what you're saying, and again, I think it's part of, the ignorance is bliss. The whole they if they don't know, they can't be disingenuous. I really believe that it's interesting. The Masons their condition of being a Mason is you have to believe in a God. We don't care what God you believe in as long as you believe in a God. And if you're atheist, you're ineligible. I believe that there's something more spiritual going on there than meets the eye. I believe they don't want the atheists because they're already gone. They're not savable. They want the other religions, and it doesn't matter which one, because then they can. Those are the ones they want to manipulate. Is basically what it comes down to. Those are the ones that they want to manipulate. Whether you're Jewish, whether you're Christian, whether you're, whatever. Those are the ones they want. And so, they take all religions, and the reason is because you're right. It is a religion at its core. They just don't want the members to realize it, because that's the best way to get them to betray whatever God it is that they truly want to serve, is to veer them by believing, that's the God you serve. But when really we're doing much darker work. As long as you don't know it, though, you can't deny it. You can't. Do you understand where I'm going with that?
Yeah, for sure. I'll have to meditate on that a little deeper, of course. But I think you've got a great point there. They're being hoodwinked, basically. They're pulling the wool over their eyes. So
sure.
Yeah. Let me just before we've gone almost not quite to the end of the show. We got another 20-25 minutes here tops, but we haven't given a shout out to the folks in the chat on YouTube. Once again, our restream is we've been kneecapped basically because of the infighting that's taking place between YouTube and Restream not wanting to play nice with each other. So we're working on looking for certain alternatives that we can bring on board here so that we can hit multiple platforms all at one time, and including the launching watch parties and the like over on Facebook. But on the fence with Musa, Barbecue Jim, Joey Boomer, Drew Beeson, 9/11, never forget. That's right. That's a question. Never forget. Well, what are we even remembering in the first place? Is one of the big questions that I like to ask. So, thanks, Drew, for dropping by. Of course, listeners will remember him from the show we did just a number of weeks ago regarding the Zodiac Killer, actually. And he has written a book regarding the whole matter. We're going to hopefully, work on having him back here, marking the anniversary of the whole D.B. Cooper skyjacking incident and its history. I think that'll be 2021. Might be. Is it September, October? We'll have to check the calendar, but we can maybe squeeze him into another type show even before then, perhaps too. He's a pretty prolific writer as far as things go, so that's really great to see him dropping by. A few months after 9/11, I was getting off the plane, and I said to the flight attendant, "Assalamu alaikum," and she just smiled with me. Ooh, boy, Joey Boomer. Little dark humor coming to us via Joey this week, I guess. So, now you would be detained for that, I guess. Well, possibly, who knows? The Muslims get away with a lot aboard airplanes too, let's not forget, but I guess it just really depends on the context. We were warned by Denmark and others about Pearl Harbor. Well, there's a lot to that as well too, that a lot of people have talked about how Roosevelt let Pearl Harbor happen. And I tend to think that is in fact the case as well. Speaking of high level Freemasons, is that Pirate Larry?
Jump in there on Pearl Harbor.
Hang on, was that Pirate Larry or was that you?
It's Rob.
Okay, go ahead.
But Pearl Harbor, interesting how the clue is simply in how they parked the ships, because they never ever line their ships up in nice, neat little rows, but on that day they did. All too convenient and all too out of their normal routine that
Yeah.
they should just line their ships up in nice, neat little rows, which make nice, neat little sitting ducks, send everyone on shore for the. It was just one of those perfect storms. It was just one of those the perfect time to strike, coincidentally, because they never do that. So the simple fact that they lined their ships up, sent everyone ashore, and just basically ran on skeleton crew with their ships in nice, neat little target rows is enough said. They wanted to be attacked. They laid it out that way.
Right. You know, another thing. Apparently, they're the large assets that the really critical.
The aircraft
they moved them out of the way, did they not, Jim? They got them right
out. The aircraft carriers were out to sea, southeast of the Hawaiian Islands, doing figure eight.
Oh yeah, I gotta have those exercises running. Gotta get the exercises.
Status without any escort ships. Aircraft carriers never leave without their escort ships, their picket ships. They weren't there. They were all in the harbor because we couldn't afford to lose any aircraft carriers, but all of the rest of the fleet was outdated World War I crap. So they needed to replace that. How do you replace ships when you're not at war and the people want to stay out of the war? You entice an enemy to attack you, and then you can declare war and use all the money you want.
Absolutely.
And it helps. It also helps if you ignore the warning signals and all that.
Oh God! Oh jeez! Pearl Harbor and 9/11, both exactly. That's right.
Exactly. Same scenario, exactly.
Yeah. So Robert Morningstar, who I think a few people out there are probably familiar with the name, he's added a comment here on our Facebook talking about how there were many nefarious reasons for those terrible events of September 11th. One of those that people never consider was the deep state desire to alter the course of events on September 12th, 2001. Let us not forget, on September 12, 2001, Henry Kissinger was set to go to trial in U.S. federal court, charged by Christopher Hitchens, his group of lawyers, with plotting various assassinations, including that of Chilean President Salvador Allende and the assassinations of Chilean Ambassador Letelier in Washington, D.C. in the 1970s. So that's a great point. Thank you very much, Robert. And in fact, there's a news link here too that we'll share in the restream. I think we can still. This is something we can still do. Thank God, is share these links and comments and so forth via restream, and we do manage to hit both YouTube and DLive, as a matter of fact. So that's great. But isn't that something? You know, that is a great point that he's making there. September 11th, 1973 was the date of the attempted CIA-backed Henry Kissinger involved, heavily implicated, playing a role in orchestrating things on that date. Allende and Pinochet, both of them happened to be Freemasons as well too. Speaking of, we're discussing the matter. So is that's just another coincidence, perhaps? Probably not. But they took. It just shows that they are willing to sacrifice their own from time to time. But any thoughts regarding Chile? Anybody? Anything further that you'd be able to help shed a little more light?
Jeffy, no, I don't have anything to say on Chile,
okay.
But I do want to say that I'm getting sleepy. I'm going to have to bow out.
Oh, no. Okay. Yeah. So
it's been a long day. It's been a very long day, frustrating. Mm-hmm. And I just can barely keep my eyes open. But thanks for having me on the show.
All right.
And we had some good conversations, and we'll talk to you again later, okay?
Yeah, your website is, as top of my head, it's like ChineseStrategies.com. Is that the best place?
Yeah, China Strategies, one word, .com.
And okay, so we'll add that, maybe a few other of your social media links to the show, YouTube and then BitChute as well too, when we re-upload things here in a couple hours over there. So
Yeah,
but,
it automatically goes to my BitChute channel too. I just did. I'm doing a series of talks on urban survival.
Right.
No, urban guerrilla tactics. Little tricks that we can learn to survive living in the police state that's coming. And so, yeah, go to YouTube. I don't know what my YouTube channel is. It's definitely for stopping, I think. And yeah, but China Strategies is fine. And don't forget to take a look at my survival library download. It's a lot of really important books that will help you get through what's coming. I'm partly a survivalist, and knowledge is key to getting through the next couple of years.
Yeah, you've
got. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you've got a Patreon as well too, presumably. Things people can buy your books, of course.
I don't have a Patreon. Well, I do, but I've never made it live or active or anything because I was really pissed off at Patreon cutting people off.
That's right.
Having,
yeah.
So I had one up for a couple of months, and then I went, holy jeez, they kicked everybody off their platform. This is not your business to regulate what people think.
Yeah,
I really
terrible.
Same with me when people comment and all that. Unless it's really crude, they're just dropping F-bombs. I approve every comment. I'm not here to censor you. You don't like me? Fine. I'll put it up there. I'm not deleting it and banning it, not unless people are really disgusting. So I believe in free speech. And what the hell do these people got to do with what somebody's saying? You're in business, for crying out loud. You're taking a percentage. Shut up, So I never got a Patreon account. I don't like those people. So no, I don't really have anything except my survival library download, which is it's an awesome product. Yeah, if you go to chinastrategies.com, you'll see it there. But I think it's the best buy on the internet, to be honest with you. And I wouldn't say that because I'm not a big salesman. You know me. But this stuff has really got important information on it. It's cheap. Download it. Store it on a flash drive. Hide it somewhere. Don't let the police find it. There's stuff in there that will get you arrested. So, there's, old manuals on how to improvise explosives, how to make gunpowder, that kind of stuff. It's not something you're allowed to have in your possession anymore, I don't think. Anyway, so guys, thanks for having me on. Sorry to bow out so early, but it's just been a really long day, and I can barely keep my eyes open. So we'll talk again soon, okay, guys? Thanks.
Take care, Stefan. We really appreciate it. We'll see you again. All the best.
Great conversation, guys. All right. It was good stuff. Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us.
All right. Well, yeah, we're pretty much at the end of the road here. Anyways, we've got a few more minutes that we could maybe work on wrapping up, summarizing. Maybe Janie Walker here, well, she's saying she can't find us anywhere to listen to. We are on YouTube. I hope it looks like she's made it there now, so that's great to see. McCain had pictures with ISIS. Well, okay, yeah, that's possible. There was also one, I guess it was photoshopped with him and Osama bin Laden. They might as well have been together, I suppose, but no, apparently, truth be told, did anyone see that one? Maybe Rob,
There's a photo of McCain and al-Baghdadi, who was the head of ISIS.
That was legit, was that?
Yeah, that's a legit. He was putting that together. He was part of putting ISIS together.
Yeah, what an awful, just a bad guy. And then the whole tie into Benghazi, of course, too. Let's not forget, and the gun smuggling,
gun running. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
weapons.
Kaiser knows a lot about that. I'm not sure if he's around. He said he was going to definitely be available if we needed someone as a stringer, or like to fill in if there was a cancellation potentially. But anyone else know much about the whole Benghazi end of things and ISIS? Because once again, where would they would any of that have even happened had there not been a September 11th? And before you maybe take a stab at that, let me just say, Hillary Clinton's involvement, her role in things, very. Oh God, I wish these are the sort of people I wish I had some more positive things to say, but. The one item I was going to bring up was her role apparently in whitewashing, doing all she could because she had clerical status of sorts, and she was a political insider in Washington, of course, for quite a few years. So she knew where, I'm not sure exactly where all the bodies were buried, but where a lot of documents could be found, and she supposedly helped to oversee and play a leading role in the whitewashing of George Bush Sr.'s role in the whole John F. Kennedy assassination. So it's something a lot of people don't know about.
It's almost like there's not really this eternal struggle between the Democrats and Republicans. It's almost like they are actually working together, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. And why are there no third parties in America? What's the problem there? I mean, there was Ross Perot.
I think it has to do with polarity. I think they need to be polar opposites so that you can draw your divide and conquer strategy out. If you got a third party in there, it's going to kind of muck things up. A nice even polarity is a lot easier to divide the people with.
Yeah, remember Jesse Ventura there was a lot of talk about him launching a third-party independent candidacy run at the presidency. That lasted about a day, and then he just kind of shot the idea down on Twitter. And I was wondering, and still wonder, why he so quickly withdrew, and made clear to the public that he was not interested in.
I'm guessing they probably took the Godfather approach and made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
Yeah, that would seem to make sense, wouldn't it? So, I mean, he's been involved in a lot of heavy things over his lifetime as well, too. But
I find it interesting. He had such a good thing going with his TV show, and that got cut short really quick because they were expecting him to chase Bigfoot, not political scandals and corruption. But he actually investigated that. I really feel like they were expecting him to chase Bigfoot and aliens, and he started turning his cameras on government conspiracies, and then they said, nope, we're pulling the plug on that one.
Right. Conspiracy theory with Jesse Ventura. It ran for 3 seasons, didn't it?
It did. And you'll see, I mean, you look at it, he was pretty sensible. Jesse's a very sensible guy, and I think that's what got him pulled. Was he wasn't like Giorgio, the Ancient Aliens guy.
Yeah, the hair guy.
Yeah, he was kind of the opposite of that, where he was actually using logic and reason and getting to the heart of the matter. So they put an end to that real quick.
Absolutely. So, and that's the way it is. Yeah, you're right. As much as I enjoy discussing, the world of ufology, Bigfoot, sure, and just all of these things which are paranormal and scientific as well, too, beyond the realm and grasp of science for whatever reason, that you're right. It really does, when you do, as engaged citizens, that's how we self-identify. A lot of the members here, the folks who make up the Robin Hood's crew, this activist moniker, such a pejorative, really, the way it's used so often. We prefer to look at ourselves more as engaged citizens. And once you become that way, I think it really does pose a threat to the powers that be, the power establishment. So these are the little, I guess you could say, brush fires that they want to do whatever they can to put out as quickly as possible, or to there's all sorts of techniques, of course, to ridicule. That's always works, or to verbally attack, the ad hominem type approach or what have you. Finally, in the last in the final scenario, of course, if people have to be completely silenced and eliminated, I think we've seen that occur more than a few times down through history. I even wonder about the John Lennon assassination in a big way with Mark David Chapman, who seemed to be really very much almost this Manchurian type candidate individual. And as Darren Brown, the famous English-British hypnotist and stage magician, proved during, I think it was called something Assassin. People can check it out on YouTube. It's a really great episode. That it can be done. It can be done. He did it in the course of his show. So if you know what you're doing, it's not that difficult. You have to find the right sort of person, the right patsy, basically, and that's what they do. Even with Oswald and others that have been used, deployed, and disposed of over the years. So, someone going to jump in there?
Nobody?
Oh, it sounded like someone was going to jump in there just before I I was just trying to unpack a few thoughts, and yeah, but maybe not. So, hey, this has been a really great show. This has been interesting. It's a little frustrating because we're not getting the reach right now because of the technical issues, although we're streaming well, only via YouTube, though, unfortunately. Like I said, we're not hitting Facebook or D Live other than just simply through text. So we're a little hamstrung on that front, but we're going to try to get something set up here. It's a little tricky with the Restream OBS Streamlabs, I guess as it is. They're not Linux compatible is the unfortunate state of affairs that we're looking at right now. So that's not good at all, of course. Anytime people are putting this software, these various platforms together, that they don't take into consideration the fact that a lot of people do use Linux. But we're going to get this other machine hooked up and running off of Windows here, hopefully within the next couple days. That's what we're aiming for. So, but there has been, we've had the likes of everyone here via the round table, of course. Reverend Jim, Pirate Larry, Stefan Verstappen, Rob Homrich, myself. That's 5 of us here, and Robert Morningstar. I mean, we've been trying to get him to join us here once again back on the show. Get maybe some lines of communication crossed or mixed up. I'm not sure what the deal is. He's a pretty busy guy as well too, let's not forget. But really appreciate that stellar comment there via the Facebook chat. Everyone, that Zane Ivy, Herb Anthony, a lot of people commenting here. We've had up to 15 likes and a handful of shares over on Facebook, so that's great. And everybody, including Drew Beeson, Joey Boomer, On the Fence with Musa, Janie Walker once again, Bat Falcon saying yes, a show about DB Cooper would be great. I fully concur, Bat Falcon. Great to see you once again. I think they're one of Drew Beeson's compadres. So, but there we go, folks. Look at that. Episode number 199. We're just going to do a quick wrap up here, guys. Go kind of round the horn sort of approach. Rob, just closing thoughts, comments regarding September 11th, just in summary, and then we'll turn the focus to Reverend Jim, and then finally Pirate Larry.
Well, I guess I would just reiterate that it just amazes me how it can be so obvious of an inside job. I don't know if I really like using that term, inside job, but for lack of a better term, I'm going to use it anyway. It boggles my mind that so many people there's so much evidence to show that there's more going on than the official narrative, and it seems obvious to everyone. I think now we've reached a pinnacle where most people would agree that there's just something not right about the official narrative, and yet we all just sit back and accept it. And for me, that's unacceptable. And it just leads to more of the same. And now we've got COVID, and it's kind of history repeating itself in these cycles. And it boggles my mind that we just continue to allow it when it's such a blatant and obvious attack on our own personal rights. Every one of us was attacked on 9/11. Every single person on this planet was attacked on 9/11. And it's time we stand up and put an end to this kind of stuff. And again, I think it really comes down to humanity just needs to outgrow this need for politics and politicians and this pyramid scheme that we were discussing earlier. We need to quit creating these positions of power, because it's only going to draw this evil in and give it a footing in our world. And that's why we're facing all these problems. So it really boggles my mind. And I sit back, I try to, the only thing that keeps me going through it all and keeps me sane is just knowing that, one, I don't have kids, and I can just sit back and be a spectator without any real invested interest in the outcome of this whole thing that's playing out in front of my eyes. At the same time, I just sit here and wonder how everyone is so complicit and just okay, and just life goes on. And I just pray that, with each passing year, that we never forget 9/11. It helps awaken something in us that finally says enough's enough.
Yeah, the cognitive dissonance or willful ignorance, it's like Orwell talked about. Ignorance is strength. South Korea, I hate to offend any of our South Korean listeners, but I mean, it's up to you folks out there who are tuning in to bring about this shift and change, alteration in consciousness, where people wake up, because it's ignorance is strength here, more than probably anywhere I've ever seen up until now, unfortunately. You find it all over the world, of course, to varying degrees, but it's it's quite strong here with so many issues, and including the COVID fear mongering, hashtag scamdemic, and total nonsense that's being deployed at present. So September 11th, we were all attacked. We were all impacted, of course. We were all affected. And we have every right and responsibility, really, to do something about it. A lot of people have, but unfortunately not enough. They got the We Are Change movement, of course, and people whose loved ones were lost on that day, whether in Washington, New York, Philadelphia, I guess, the Flight 93. So there was just not quite 3,500 people altogether is what the official numbers tell us. And then, the one thing that so many people don't take into consideration is how many people have died since as a result of the event that occurred. People all around the world, including the troops, of course. 6,000, I think, if I got my numbers straight. I might be a little off there. I might be really off, but dead. Not to mention those who have been forever scarred and wounded, impacted with the PTSD that so many of them return home with. That's all part and parcel. That's what when you sign up. Those are the sacrifices that one ought to be prepared in making. It's why I didn't quite sign my name on the dotted line in looking at getting on board with the Canadian Reserves back just following. It was right around 2002 when I was in Edmonton, as a matter of fact. And the reason being is because two things: the shots that we would have to take, and this gas shack nonsense. That whole business. There's those two simple. If those had not been on the table, I could very well be, back in Canada, as a military reserve. That I had in mind at that time, considered pursuing a course and career in as a medic of sorts. Really, that's what I thought would maybe be a good match. Kind of a dangerous job, I was told, though, as well too. So, but you got to put yourself and your life on the line sometimes for people, as that's just your job. Firemen do it all the time. Police sometimes do it, and just regular citizens as well too. Although these days now, I guess you can get into big trouble. There was a Good Samaritan laws that were punished for actually helping people on all too many occasions. So, anyways, enough of that. I could go on forever. Reverend Jim, you've been listening quite attentively here, I guess, from the sounds of things. So how would you like to, on what sort of note would you like to call an end to things this week?
Well, it was brought up, when are people going to call for justice? When are they going to wake up? When is this nightmare going to end? The survivors of the attack on the USS Liberty have been asking this question now for 53 years. When is justice coming? When is the truth going to be known and accepted by the American people that Israel is not our friends? They've never been our friends. And if you don't believe in, if you can't accept the truth about the attack on the USS Liberty or 9/11, go back to the Levant affair. See what they were up to then. These people have never been our friends. They're an evil little, you want to call them a race, a religion, a cult,
clique,
a clique, whatever. They are friends only to themselves, and they hate each other amongst them. So,
do you know, Reverend Jim, that there's actually, apparently, I think this is the Talmudic Jews. I could be mistaken, no authority by any means, but I just heard the other day, and I think it's been drawn to my attention in the past as well too, that there are some Jews, practicing Jews, who those who self-identify as such, some, not all, probably not even all that many, hopefully, but they wake up in the morning and say a prayer in gratitude for the fact that they are Jewish, and more than anything that they're not born a goy, a Gentile goy, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Well,
so
are they afraid that one of these days they are going to wake up and not be a Jew anymore?
Well, there you go. That's what happened when you bring reincarnation into the picture. It really turns things on their head, really, because exactly that's correct. Yeah. Yeah, reincarnation is, once you throw that into the works, absolutely. So is there anything more that you'd like to say? The Levant affair, just in brief, let's just hear a little bit about that. Along with, let's not forget, the bombing of the King David Hotel. Was that in Jerusalem? That was another false flag, apparently, that you had. The modern day origins, the origins of modern day terrorism go right back to Israel, apparently, with the Stern Group was one of the terrorist organizations, the Stern Group. And then there was I was going to say Likud, but I think that's a political party. There was one or two others as well, just nasty little terrorist organizations that were really instrumental in launching and laying the foundation to this planet's modern day terrorist networks, really. So a lot to be said for that, and we have to do a little more homework on that front. But something else I was going to bring to listeners' attention. There was an author, Pirate Larry, maybe or maybe Rob. He was a 9/11 author who was he was found to have supposedly committed suicide and killed his children and his dog. Bloody hell! What was Philip Marshall? That was his name. Philip Marshall, and he wrote a great book. If anyone ever gets a chance to listen to the interviews that he recorded and put together, by all means. And I think the reason that another one is Gary Webb type, 2 shots to the head sort of scenarios. So I just really doubt that he. The fact is, more reason to doubt that he supposedly killed his 2 beautiful children and dog is the fact that we see it time and again. This is their modus operandi. It's the way they operate. That the crime scene was sterilized, it was cleaned, just within. It didn't take long whatsoever to have the whole crime scene completely, any trace of DNA and any further evidence that might indicate it was anything.
Kind of like what they did on 9/11 with removing all the rubble.
That's right.
That real quick.
Danny Casolaro, the Kennedy assassination. It's all the same thing. They do it every time, don't they? Danny Casolaro, the octopus, same bloody thing. You're right there. Thank you. And that's one of the things that Jesse Ventura covered actually during his conspiracy theory show, the episode that he put together as part of the series covering 9/11. Exactly what you're saying there. How all of the rubble and concrete shipped off to China. The steel and all the material. So they found the black boxes. Apparently too. So, both of I think all of the black boxes, but we've never heard a thing about it since. Apparently. So, I mean, has anybody heard anything about the black boxes? Go ahead.
Better yet, the passports. Those were really easy to find.
Oh my God, pristine. Just pristine. Everything else was just pulverized to dust. But was that Muhammad Atta's passport?
Very interesting how the passports seem to be stronger than the steel beams of the World Trade Center.
Oh.
Almost like they should have made the World Trade Center out of passports.
That was that. I think that was Muhammad Atta's passport too, wasn't it?
I don't remember which one.
Pretty sure. Jackpot. Then I think one of the notes that we had made here as well too. Abel Danger, Sybil Edmonds. She was the FBI analyst who was muzzled by the government. She was a whistleblower, basically. And there was a lot of inside knowledge there as far as sort of things that have never really come out via the mainstream media, nor should we ever expect them to, because frankly, that's not their job. They are the gatekeepers. They're not the ones who are here to enlighten us, frankly. I don't buy that for a minute. More just to tantalize and titillate and to, perhaps to, well, there's so much that with the media, the way they operate, and it's gatekeeping, though, is definitely one of them. And setting the agenda, too, let's not forget. That's a central role and function, too. So, September 11th, final words, comments, thoughts. Pirate Larry, you're the last voice we're going to hear tonight, besides mine, I suppose.
They hate us. On the top of the pyramid.
Our freedom.
Especially in Washington, D.C., the Beltway. They talk about us as if we were sheeple, as if they're very arrogant. Like Nancy will go get her hair done, but nobody else can. They hate us. And so, the war on humanity, they're totally on board. with the war on humanity, and they blame humanity. They squeeze us tighter and tighter and tighter, and blame us for being homeless. That's his fault. He doesn't have a job.
Blame us for producing too much carbon, for breathing too much. Useless eaters.
Yeah, useless eaters. But there's another thing that's emerging, which I see is the network. And the network, we're all equal. There's no the authoritarian regimes are like the military, the police, even school is authoritarian. Those are teaching people who are supposed to be free how to live in an authoritarian system where, is the word of the king or the commander, and everybody has to follow it. And that leads to all kinds of trouble all the time. But in the meantime, we have a network emerging of people who are all equal on the network. They have different talents. They have different, capabilities. And when we need somebody, we put out a call and some node on the network lights up and says, "Oh yeah, you want to do this thing in Linux, or oh yeah, you want to answer this question about streaming," and it's out there. So the knowledge is there. The knowledge that we share with one another is free. We would, as a people, we know that 9/11 was fake, the official story. But, what do you do? I mean, they still have the guns. So it's a time when, people have to wait. We have to buy our time. And they will fail. They're holding on for dear life. They're really grabbing very hard right now. But, when people see that 9/11 was a hoax, and people see the Boston bombing as, it could have been avoided. I think people just get tired of the false flags, and what happens is they don't bite on the next one. Remember the sarin gas missile that was lobbed into Syria, and CNN sent a reporter over there and she sniffed it. You don't go around sniffing sarin gas.
Yeah.
So, it was one of those chlorine things. It was a false flag again, and it worked. It got, Trump to bomb Syria. But even Trump is getting, he's not buying into the false flags. And I see that as, a step forward. But yeah, 9/11 was a false flag. It was a war declared on the Middle East to control the flow of oil, because the U.S. was a petrodollar and they want to control all the oil out of there. And Russia was, competing for the oil. So we, used military might to compete. That's what the bankers always like. And a lot of people died. We had, you said 6,000, so that's almost twice the number of soldiers died in Afghanistan as people who died in 9/11. Even one death is too much, but death by our own government as a lie, as a deception, that's unforgivable. And again, I people are not sheeple. People are busy. They're putting food on the table. They're trying to raise kids. They got a lot on their hands, but most people know, and most people are just waiting for the right moment to, get rid of these guys. And when you have Henry Kissinger being able to duck out of a trial and, George Bush comfortably painting in his Texas home where, he can't go to England or France. He's a war criminal. I don't know how Obama gets to go to any countries, but apparently he does. At any rate, I'm drifting. 9/11 changed everything, and it became a new normal. We had to take our shoes off to go through the airport and get scanned or patted down or whatever, all this nonsense. And they never caught they haven't caught a single terrorist, doing that. And now we have this new normal of everybody walking around in masks. And, I think people are trying to be cooperative. People are trying to, not get people sick. I've talked to people who are very, pro-mask, and they're saying, well, we're doing it for the old folks. We don't want the old folks to get sick. So it's, altruistic. It's not, they're not doing it because they're dumb and stupid. But yeah, if they have been deceived by the media and, the New World Order again, pretty soon, people are getting tired of it. I mean, a lot of people are bailing on the New World Order. A lot of people are bailing on the two-party system because it's really a single corporate party. It's a single corporate party. So yeah, you're seeing the emergence of like the People's Party, where like all the disaffected people from the Bernie campaign are moving. A lot of Democrats are moving. They're moving out because they realize that the party is not for the working poor. The party is not for the people. The party will tell you you have to wear a mask and you have to shut down your business. But, if I need my hair done as a congresswoman, I go and get my hair done and screw you. So anyway, yeah, we all see we're being screwed. And this too will change. And the network will emerge and be a much more equitable and fair system.
That sounds great, Larry. I hope that we see something in the way of what you're talking about, emerge, manifest over time. The cashless solution has its place to a certain extent, I would say, but just, as does the barter system, of course, too. But this is another discussion for another night. WPRPN, the People's Pirate Network. This is one outlet and one platform where we like to keep things as about egalitarian and respectful as possible. As Larry had pointed out, we've all got our various skill sets and abilities. So with each of everyone who's involved in things here stepping forward and applying themselves in that capacity, we can do what we can to optimize these alternative solutions and ways of getting things done, including keeping the light on human rights and exposing the people who are behind these crimes and atrocities, seeing that there's some accountability, ultimately finding itself in place. So, once again, I think we've pretty much just organically reached the end of the road here. It's been a great ride. We've gone 2 hours, and that's fine for me, frankly, because just a natural conversation really here, just people sharing their views and trying to comment on all the various issues, as many as we could. Of course, There's a lot more to be said about September 11th and its implications. Today, though, is a day of memorial, tribute to the heroes as well, too, the survivors and the victims. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Dana Shiver making it here late to the show. It's great that she's made her presence known. Our favorite in-house, originally Georgian peach, now a Californian druid, is how the story goes there. So Janie Walker, Joey Boomer, everyone on the fence with Musa Barbecue, Jim. Number of people not logging in, of course, via Facebook. Everyone who was a part of things over with comments and the like on Facebook. And even D Live. What was the deal there, Reverend Jim? Just in brief. I didn't really manage to keep much of an eye on things, although we were sending comments there through the restream. I'm pretty sure they did manage to register.
To be honest, I didn't even check the D Live page this week once I saw that it wasn't working.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm going to drop by there. I should have done this earlier. And maybe what we can do here, just as we wrap up, is unleash the beast, as it were, and open up the treasure box. So
I don't think you can unless you are streaming.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, we are streaming, but we're not streaming anything through D Live. So that's really unfortunate. We're going to have to get this workaround in place. So bear with us, people. You know, these independent, online, alternative, underground, digital operations such as ours, it's a lot of work. And with your help, we can build things up to a more professional level, of course. But right now, very much just flying by the seat of our pants. Thank God, though, the integrity of what we put together here this week did manage to sustain itself. Up to 13 people now is what YouTube is telling us, so that's really great to see. Unfortunately, we, like I said, we're not able to hit these other platforms this week, but great to see that support over there on YouTube. So, this coming Tuesday, of course, we're going to have the news, as is typically the case, and we'll be back next Friday with Talk Like a Pirate Day 2020. We missed out last year. Hope you'll join us this coming Friday with all your favorite pirate knowledge, trivia, quotes, ideas, inspiration, and information. Having said that, of course, as we typically like to end things here with the outro, this being episode number 199 of Pirate Radio Podcast, that until we meet again out on the high digital seas, on behalf of everyone, including Reverend Jim, Stefan Verstappen, Rob Homrich, Pirate Larry, I'm your host, as always, Ship's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. Never forget that much is true. It's a question, though, of course, let's not kid ourselves, how it is we choose to remember. Tally-ho.
Aye now, there we be. Having carefully looked over each of our navigation panel instruments,
checking every level, switch, dial, cable, knob, and pulley, by all accounts and indications, we indeed see it's time, once again, to drop anchor inside Mystic Bay.
Draw an end to yet another week of World Pirate Radio Live.
Remember,
if you're looking for a little more animated online action,
Keep in mind, we've likely got yet another great free-flowing Rogues Gallery after show coming up for the next hour in one of our more premium, exclusive, and remote digital underground online pirate hideaways. Also, if you yourself have a new, novel, intriguing, or otherwise underreported idea, unique individual, or pressing item in mind, be sure to either drop us a line directly over on WPRPN.com or fire us a quick email via PirateOneRadio@protonmail.com. We're always open to exploring fresh creative suggestions, intriguing guest ideas, cutting-edge discussion topics, and captivating themes.
Remember, WPRPN.com member site subdomain links are also always available.
Great for artists, musicians, podcasters, bloggers, social media personalities, or pretty much just any old landlubber looking to boost their online visibility, presence, and reach. Basic personal profile accounts can be launched for just $60 per year. Staking your claim now helps not only strengthen you and the network, we're also looking out for the little guy. That's right, folks. As much as half of all WPRPN's profits are redirected right back into the hands of the people who really need it most. Community charity. After all, we are the Robin Hood. You can further embark on your own personal pirate journey by either liking, sharing, commenting on, subscribing to, or just following us via virtually any mainstream social media platform, including Twitter, Facebook, Gab, or Minds.com. So don't forget to become engaged. Until we meet again out on the high digital seas, I'm your host as always, the ship's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. Tally-ho.